Hey everybody, I wanted to show you how you can use Excel formulas to automate any kind of text summary that you might be putting together in an Excel document. This can really come in handy, and it can certainly be used in a much broader sense than what I'm going to show you. But I think what I'm going to show you could help motivate, or help you understand ways that you could be implementing this in your reporting. So I want to just use a simple example. I want to say you've got a sales report. Let's say you've got a report on the current period and the current year. You've got to show what those results are. And let's say you also have an interest in reporting that against the current period from the prior year. So that's what we have as the first two rows here, the sales for those two respective periods. And those are just hard-coded and formatted as dollars. And then we have the sales variance year over year, just showing whether we're actually, improving, going backwards. So in this particular case, why not make it a positive example? We're able to increase sales year over year by $10,000. And of course, if we wanted to, change that to whatever higher or lower number we wanted to, we could see that variance updating dynamically for us as well. And then underneath of that, let's say we've got a summary that we're used to including in a report, or maybe this is something we're going to copy into an email on a regular basis. So I want to kind of walk through creating this in the manual way and then showing how we can use formulas to help update this for us. So, if we were just going to update this in a manual way, let's say that sales actually in the most recent period were 80,000, and in the prior year were, let's make it 60,000. So in this case, we could say sales increased not by that 10, but we'd have to go change that to 20,000. And then they increased that 20,000 not to 90, but to 80,000. So we can see that. And that was the update. In this case, we also then would realize that if it instead wasn't so positive, if we had an example where sales went to 40,000, we would need to change this from sales increased. We need to change this to sales decreased. And I do want to emphasize that, again, in this particular example, it's not necessarily that hard to just go through and update this. But understanding that, again, if this can be something that you include on multiple levels or include in a much more complex way, you could end up saving yourself a ton of time in your monthly, quarterly reporting. It's certainly going to add up for you. So let me show you how we would do that. So first of all, and I'm going to kind of build this out step by step. And that being said, this is a relatively advanced video. So if there's any questions about any of the, functions or formulas that I'm going to be using to complete this, I'll do my best to kind of explain them as we go. But if there are specific questions on how to do anything, feel free to leave a comment, and I'd be happy to connect with you and help you understand how you could be using this for your own reporting. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to go over here, select it in this box that has our little summary. I'm going to start out by just putting an equal sign because we're going to make this into a formula. So I'm going to say equals. Now where there's all of the text, I'm going to make all of that just a text string. And I'm going to do that by putting an individual text string into quotes. And then I'm going to separate the numbers and actually point the numbers at the actual cells themselves. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to put sales in quotes, and I'm going to go all the way up to that number, and I'm going to include that space after by, because I want that space to be shown in the actual summary that we're going to be showing. And then I'm going to be able to hit the and symbol. So if I just hit shift and 7, it's going to hit that ampersand symbol for us. And that's really going to work like a concatenating feature. It's just going to combine different things that we want to put together. And so again, in this case, I don't want the $20,000 to be a text string. I want it to be pointed at a variable. And in this particular case, I want that variable to be pointed. So I'm going to delete that out. I want it to be pointed at the variance, because here I'm saying if it's increasing, or later I'll show you how we can update that dynamically to decreasing or increasing. But at this point, I just want it to point at cell B3. And then I'm going to hit and there's no need to, when you're actually using a formula in a reference like this, there's no need to use quotations on that B3. So I'm going to do that. And then I run into another text string. So I am going to use quotes here. Leave the space until I run into the next number and put that in quotes. Use the ampersand sign again. And then again, I'm going to delete that hard-coded number. And I'm saying this is what the sales have increased or decreased to. So it's going to be the most recent period. So I'm going to point this one at cell B1. Hit the ampersand again. And the rest of this is just going to be text. So it's just going to be including that space. I'm going to put in my quote, go all the way to the end, have my quote. And I can see that, one of the biggest changes so far that's taken place is that I've gotten rid of the actual formatting on my number. So instead of having it nicely formatted where it was, 20,000, showing the dollar sign, showing the comma separator, we lost all that formatting. But before I show you how I'm going to add that back, which we can easily do, I do want to show you that it is going to dynamically update. So instead of, losing 20,000, let's make the summary accurate for now. Let's say we're going to go from 60 to 100,000. If we do that, we can see that the sales variance is 40,000. So it did increase by 40,000 as our variance shows us here. And sales in the most recent period are 100,000. So this summary has updated dynamically. But again, as I mentioned, it's not nicely formatted in terms of the numbers. And it also wouldn't be accurate at this point if you actually did have the decrease. So if we had that 40,000 like we did, it's going to say sales increased by a negative 20,000. We know that's not accurate. I'm going to show you how you can handle that in your summary as well. But first things first, I want to show you how we're going to be able to update this to fix that formatting. And I'm going to show you off to the right because I don't want, the formula that we have going in the summary to become too complicated. So I'm just going to, off to the right, show you how you would be able to use this text formula to clean that up. So to use the text formula, just as an example, I'm going to say equals text, open a parenthesis, and I'm going to go point it at one of these values. So I'm going to pick 40,000 because that's one of the numbers that we need ultimately to have formatted. So I'm going to say text B1, comma, and then it's going to ask me to format text. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to have to put this in quotes. I'm going to do quotes, dollar sign, number, comma, number again, have that in quotes, in the parenthesis, and hit enter. Oop, sorry, that was not meant to be a dollar sign. That was meant to be the number sign. But that is one of the great things about Excel is that you know what you're looking for, and you can tell right away if it's right or wrong. So clearly, we didn't want that formatted the way it was. We're able to see that and update it. So again, you can see up here, it's equals text, B1, dollar sign, number sign, comma, number sign, put it in quotes, in the parenthesis, and there we go. And now it's got that 40,000 ready for us to plug into our summary. So if we go back over here, we can actually just go ahead and add that text piece. And this time I'll try to use the number sign correctly and not the dollar sign. So we're going to have our text B3. I'm going to skip to the end of that. Put a comma in there to get to our format text. Put that in quotes. Have the dollar sign, the number, a comma, and then the number. Put that in quotes. Close the parenthesis. And now we hit enter and we see that 20,000 is nicely formatted with the comma. It's also formatted with the dollar sign. And then I'm going to just go over here and for B1, type in text, do that exact same thing, go to the end of B1, put in a comma, and then again, put that in quotes, dollar sign, number sign, comma, number, quote, close the parenthesis, and we are good to go. And just to avoid confusion, I'm going to delete that guy out. So now we have this set up where it's actually, we can change these values. Again, we can go back to making this an accurate statement. And as we adjusted that to 100,000, we can see that below our numbers are updating and it's actually formatted the way we want it to be formatted. Dollar signs, the comma in there for us, just as we would like. Now, the other step that we can take with this is actually use a nested if statement to determine what that sales variance is, to be able to correctly capture if sales are increasing or decreasing, or alternatively, if sales are just flat. So if they were 100,000 last year and this year, we don't necessarily, in that case, of course, want to be showing an increase or a decrease. So I'm going to go ahead and again, when I talk about nested if statements, this is something that, if you need more help with this, I'd be happy to provide that support. So if you want to comment about that, I can certainly go into more detail in a future video or connect with you one-on-one. Absolutely happy to help. But for now, I'm just going to kind of assume that there's some familiarity with that advanced feature, or that advanced formula. So I'm going to go ahead and just start creating that now. So I'm going to say equals if, open parenthesis. I'll move this out of the way so we can see. So I'm really trying to do this based on the variance, because if the variance is above 0, I want it to say sales increase. If it's below 0, I want to say it's a decrease. And if it's neither of those, it's flat. So I want to isolate this to B3. If B3 is greater than 0, comma, then I want it to do that whole thing that we talked about. Because again, if that variance is positive, everything is good to go. And then I'm going to come to the end of that. So that's all that's going to happen. If B3 is greater than 0, this is the value it's going to give me if it's true. And now by hitting comma all the way at the end over here, it says that now it's the value if false. And because now if the only two possible situations were increase or decrease, I wouldn't need to do another if in this case. But we know that there are still two possibilities here: the possibility of decreasing or being flat. So again, if you know it's just two things, you don't need to do a nested if. You could literally say if, have the value if it's true, have the value if it's false, you're good to go. But again, thinking ahead, realizing that there are still two more to go, I am going to use that nested if, which only means that in the false piece of this value, I'm going to type if again, open my parenthesis. Now I'm going to kind of, instead of just completely reworking that, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to say, I'm going to copy that piece. I'm going to say if B3 is less than 0, comma, I'm going to paste in that whole section I just copied. And now the only thing I'm going to change is that instead of saying sales increased, I'm going to type decreased there. And then it's going to work the way I want it to. I'm going to bring it to the end of the formula, put a comma, and then you can see it's highlighting now the section value if false. And so, we're at a spot where we've covered if our variance is greater than 0, it's going to do that first formula that we put in together, show that sales increased. If it's below 0, it's going to do that same formula, except for now I've changed the language to say sales decreased because the variance is negative. And then all the way at the end, it's saying, well, what do you want to do with the value is false now? And keep in mind that for nested if statements in this case, if there were more than 3 possibilities, I could continue to put an if statement in here to capture as many, different scenarios that I wanted to capture. But I know that I want to end it, so I'm going to, in quotes, say sales were flat. Put that in quotes. Going to close the parenthesis. And there we have it. And then, of course, we can test this out. So again, just like that, kind of small error that I made earlier, what's great about Excel is you can kind of go back and change things, make sure that what you're seeing in your summary is actually what you expected and what you want it to be. So let's say sales went from 60,000 to 20,000. So what does that mean? That means sales decreased by 40,000, and they decreased from that 40,000. They ended up being 20,000, and we can see that it did change to sales decreased. Right, so again, instead of having to manually go through and update this summary, if you were just needed to send this or put this in your email, you could literally just copy that, put it in your email, and your sales report would be completely ready to go and summarized. and also to show that sales were flat, we put in 20,000 to 20,000. You could just say sales were flat. Simple as that. So there you have it, a way to build a dynamic summary in Excel, have it do the work for you. Would love to know if you guys have any questions on this. If you guys are currently using a variation of this, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.